Started with this presentation. My name is Joshua Shanik. I serve as the Director of Student Services. We have some folks joining us online as well via live stream, and this presentation is being recorded for people to access later as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about course selection tonight, and there's a timeline that goes with this. So some of this information, if you have sophomores and juniors, was shared with them during homeroom yesterday. If you have freshmen, this information is going to be shared with them on November 29th. But in this time frame of November 15th to December 17th, students and parents will review the scheduling materials that you received via email today. Then grades 10 through 11 will have either individual course selection meetings or may kind of do this on their own in that time range. Or if your student is a freshman in grade 9, they're going to have a guided experience with that during their computer applications class. Then once we get into January through May, you can still make changes to what you're scheduled for or what you're asking to take. And then in June or July, course schedules will get sent out to students. So these are the four main people who work with the course selection process. So Mrs. Krause up there is in the Learning Center. She will work with some students to work on their schedules. Myself sends out the bulk of the information to people, and I'll be having individual meetings with students in my office. Mr. Walter, who's up there, is the computer applications teacher. He will be meeting with all the freshmen to do their scheduling. And then Mr. Waltz, our guidance director, will help out also, and he'll be doing the later part of this presentation. So I'll start off by reviewing just what the minimum graduation requirements are. This is the bare minimum of what you need to do to get to the high school diploma. 4 credits of Word of God, 4 credits of English, 3 credits of math, 3 credits of social studies, 3 credits of science, a credit and a half of PE and health, a credit in business computer, a credit in fine arts, and then 3.5 credits of electives. And I'll make a point here because this is sometimes confusing for people. The elective courses are not a special group of courses. Any course that you take here counts towards the electives. So you may end up taking extra math and extra social studies, and that's going to fill up those 3.5 credits. Any way that you want to fill up those 3.5 credits to get to that minimum of 24 credits for graduation. A course load, so our standard course load for a student is 7 classes per semester. That's what we'll be looking to schedule with them. There are some students who will choose to take 8, so they won't have a study hall. I have a note there about scheduling priority. So when it comes to actually putting together the schedule for next year, students who are seniors get first priority over students who are juniors, over students who are sophomores, etc. If we're trying to put the schedule together and there's some kind of a conflict and we need to push somebody one way or another. All the course selection resources, the stuff that was emailed to you, a lot of that information can be found at kmlhs.org/courses. That's the website address. There's a picture there of what that looks like. The 2 pieces of information you're probably most interested in are the course selection guide, which is about a 40-page long document that lists all the courses that we offer, all the information about them. And then there's also the 4-year course planning guide, which is a 1-page kind of spreadsheet grid that has all the courses listed, and you can kind of keep track there of what courses you've taken and what courses you're planning to take. This is a sample of what's inside the course selection guide. So in this case, Honors Anatomy and Physiology gives you the course number, which is not really important to you guys. It tells you how many credits, whether it's elective or required class, what grades can take it, and then the piece that I want to focus on is the prerequisites. So some classes require you to have gotten a certain grade in another class before you take them. That's a prerequisite. So as you get into those classes, pay attention that there are some, and you're going to need to take a look at that information to make sure that you're meeting those. The prerequisites are intended to help students succeed. We want to make sure that students are being placed in courses that are a good fit for them. We will verify compliance with that, so we'll do some checks as we get to the end of the year to make sure that students have met those prerequisites, and if they haven't, we'll be in touch to try and schedule something different. A student can request a waiver if they're passionate about a subject but they don't meet the prerequisite, and we'll arrange for them to talk to the teacher, provide some information to the teacher, and see if the teacher would be willing to let them into the class even though they don't meet that prerequisite. In the email that you should have received tonight and your students received, there is a personalized course selection guide. So this will list in it all of the courses that your student has taken by department, as well as the courses that your student is currently in and is scheduled to take in the second semester. And you will see there a total of credits, and you'll see listed what their final grades were in those courses. That helps you know how many credits they need to take yet, that kind of stuff. Underneath that, there are going to be some notes. So in this case, the Word of God note, it just says which class you should sign up for. So some spots, there is not a choice what you should sign up for, and there are other places where there are some choices or there's a bit of advice there that's specific to your child. So here's an example of what that might look like. As students move along into the junior and senior year, there are some areas that can be a little bit confusing because suddenly there are some choices that they have to go through. One of them is when students become seniors, what their English options are. So most of our students, grade 9, 10, and 11, they're all taking English 9, 10, or 11. Once you get to be a senior, however, a lot of options open up. So there are 3 different ways that seniors can meet that graduation requirement of their 12th grade English. Option 1 is that they can take 1 semester of a literature course and 1 semester of a rhetoric course. So rhetoric here means they're doing some kind of production. So that's generally either speech or writing. In the literature course options, we have 1 on-campus literature option. That's world literature. That's what the majority of seniors will take. We do also offer some online options that are high school level. So there's a science fiction and fantasy literature, and there's a British literature option. For students who are on the higher end, there are also dual credit options. So you can take a dual credit literature course through a college like Concordia. On the rhetoric side of things, we offer here on campus both speech and creative writing. And then there are also some online dual credit rhetoric course options. And you can mix and match. So you could have a student who takes world literature and then takes a dual credit rhetoric course and vice versa. The second option is that a student can take AP English, Literature and Composition. There is a requirement with that one that I'll mention, that we're looking for students who have gotten a B+ or better in English, 11. But that is an option, they can take AP English. The third option is Literacy for Life, which is a class that we have designed for students who are generally not headed to college. And Mrs. Krause would be in touch with you if your student is a candidate for that class. Seniors also have a requirement that they have to take a U.S. government class. There are 2 main options there as well. The majority of our students take an in-person class here, United States government. But we do also offer some online dual credit options from Bethany Lutheran College, Concordia University, and Grand Canyon University that are all acceptable to replace U.S. government. Juniors, the class that's a little bit tricky to figure out sometimes are the U.S. history options. So all juniors take U.S. history. We have a regular U.S. history class. Probably about half of the juniors take that class. And then we also have a dual credit AP option for U.S. history. That one gets a little tricky in how it's described because it's technically 2 separate 1 semester courses. The reason that we break it up like that has to do with the dual credit piece. So we offer these in person. Mr. Linton, one of our teachers, teaches this class for us, but he also teaches it on behalf of Bethany Lutheran College. So if your student chooses to pay the fee to get the college credit for the class, They will do that. If they don't pay to get the college credit, they're in the same class with Mr. Linton, and they're doing it as an AP class. That class is 2 semesters because the college class is actually 2 separate U.S. history classes. It's U.S. History 1, U.S. History 2. Students can take the dual credit part for either semester 1 or for semester 2 or for both semesters. It's up to you. This is probably the first exposure that a lot of parents and students have to getting into some of the dual credit options and how things are a little bit weird with that. I will tell you that we've found, just as one example, that sometimes it's better to take U.S. History 2 as a dual credit class instead of U.S. History 1. Because there is a college that we're aware of that if you're going into the majority of their programs, only the U.S. History 2 class is going to transfer in as a credit that's usable to the students. So that is something you may want to look at with your student and help them to make some decisions around. On the other side of things, this is the cheapest dual credits that we offer. It's only $120 per semester for those credits. So there's not a lot of risk there if you do something and find out that eventually you're not able to use those credits. Dual credit classes, I've mentioned a couple of options before, but we do have several here on campus. In the math arena, statistics, Calculus 1, Calculus 2, and Calculus 3. All of those are taught by Mr. Keel here on campus. That's in partnership with UW-Oshkosh, their CAP program. And then I mentioned the dual credit U.S. history. In addition to those, we have a bunch of online dual credit courses that we offer. So there's at least 60 different courses there from Bethany Lutheran College, Concordia Lutheran University, or Concordia University, Wisconsin, Grand Canyon University, and Martin Luther College. Those are all listed out for you in the course selection guide, so you can take a peek at what those are. In the course selection guide, this is what a section of dual credit courses will look like and be listed as. Probably hard to read some of that, but over here is just the course name, and what I'm pointing out with the arrows is that some of the courses that we have listed there have prerequisites themselves. So in this particular example, you would have had to take one of their dual credit courses before you can take the next one in the series, so be aware of that. The second column is the department that it matches up to from Kettle's perspective. So in college, colleges split their courses up into more departments than we do in high school. So you can't always tell by looking at that department what it transfers to as us, so we have that listed out there. The next column is whether or not that course would count toward the required graduation credits in that area. And then it tells you how many high school credits you get. And then there's a note on the end. And now if you go back to what we talked about with the dual credit English options, all the courses that are options for literature or rhetoric, there's a note here that mentions that. So any of these courses that can be taken in place of a regular KML course, that's noted in the notes on the side. Note about honors courses. So we offer a variety of different honors courses. We are looking in those courses for students to maintain a C or better in those classes. And I'll take a moment to mention that if a C isn't maintained, we do have options for kids to move out of those classes into the regular version of the class. Some course changes, if you guys have been with us from other years. AGVA is Amazing Grace Virtual Academy. They're one of our partners that provides some high school classes online. They will be offering astronomy this next year, which is a class that they offer every other year. They won't be offering medical terminology, which is another course that they offer every other year. We, in person, will be offering music theory next year. That's a course that we only offer every other year. Then just some notes that the AGVA offerings may change. So AGVA is looking at expanding, so there may be some additional courses that they offer for next year. If your student's looking at getting Calculus 3, we are moving Calculus 3 from being a one semester class to being a full year class. And then My caveat with all the online dual credit stuff from the colleges is that those offerings can change at any time without notice to me. The colleges are their own entity. Typically when they change some kind of an offering, they don't inform us at all. So we're usually the last ones to find out when they make a change. Course request changes. So there's no charge for changes to course requests. There was several years ago. We got rid of that. I still get questions about it, so I make a point to mention there isn't any charge or any fees that are associated with any of this. The reason why we have you pick your classes now in November and December is so that we can start building our schedule and working out our staffing plan for the next year. The later that you make changes to what courses you want to take, the less likely it is that I'm going to be able to get that into your schedule. So you're still allowed to make those changes, but that's the reason why we want to get this done sooner than later. Schedule changes, so once the schedule is actually set, you'll get the schedule from me in June or July via email. Once that happens, you can still make changes to the schedule. So if you signed up for something, you decide, I don't want to take that anymore, you just call up and let me know, or email me and let me know. Students may make changes all the way through the 4th day of a semester. So even right now, we have students who are emailing me saying, hey, I'd like to change something in my 2nd semester schedule. That's not a problem. They can do that all the way up through the 4th day of the 2nd semester. Now I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Waltz, who's going to talk a little bit more about college and how all this kind of connects to that.
Good evening, everyone. I know most of you. My name is Jason Walsh. I'm the guidance director here, and I've been here in the role of guidance director for about 6-7 years. One of the things I'm going to walk you through is some things that can be confusing, especially if you have younger students who are looking at college. It gets more understandable once it becomes more realistic and they're actually near the college age. We'll start with the college admissions. To get into college, colleges are going to look at 4 main criteria, and you can see those 1 through 4. ACT or SAT score, we'll talk about that in a second. GPA, and then colleges say they also look at class rank. Just for your information, we do not release class rank for the purposes of admission. The reason we changed that a few years ago is because it tends to hurt our students. I'm thinking of this senior class. If someone has a 3.5 in this class, they are not going to be in the top half of their class. Colleges don't like that. If you're not in the top half, that will count against you. Well, we feel that our students are exceptional in their grades and their academics, and so we don't want the class rank to hurt them. People like Mark Belling might say that we're anti-competition or stuff like that. That's not true. We like competition. We just want our kids to have a fair competition against other schools. Academic rigor is the other one that we're going to spend some time on. That's kind of the third part of this. And academic rigor is colleges want to see that the students they let in will have success in college. And so if students who are in high school take academically challenging classes, then the colleges can get a better gauge of their grade point average and how they're going to do when they come to college. The whole point of the SAT and the ACT is to get a predictor score for how your child is going to do with college work, college academics. And so if they score low on the ACT, SAT, it's a predictor that says, okay, they'll probably struggle in college academics. If they get a really high ACT score, the predictor is your child's going to do real well in college homework and coursework. Doesn't have anything to do with IQ or anything like that. Back to the academic rigor, you can see A honors classes. Mr. Shane talked about, we have several honors classes that we offer. Some students will be like, why should I take honors classes? They do tend to get a tad more content, and they go at a faster pace. And so colleges would look at that in the admission process and say, oh, good for you. You took this honors class. That's a little bit better than the normal class. And in the admissions process, it counts a positive for them. AP classes, Mr. Shanik talked about those. AP classes are basically college classes taught in high school. And AP means that to get college credit, your student will have to take an AP exam. The AP exam is basically the end of the course exam as if they took a college class. And so one of the examples Mr. Shanik said was our U.S. history. U.S. history is a full year. At the end of that full year, they'll take, I think that exam is 3 hours and 15 minutes. And so they take a real exam that they'll study for, and it'll be very hard. And then the AP will give them a 5 if they are fantastic, that's an A. They'll give them a 4, which would be a B on that exam. A 3 would be a C. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Dual credits are the other ones that Mr. Shaning talked about. Dual credits are college classes. So in the academic rigor of things, if your child takes a dual credit, they're taking a college class. And the grade they get is from basically their college work. That also shows the colleges, okay, this child can handle college work. And then we also have classes as part of our, I'll call it our normal curriculum. They aren't labeled anything special, but high levels of math, science, English, and then we also have, obviously, foreign language. Foreign language can be a tricky one. Excuse me. The University of Wisconsin-Madison, depending on what source you look at, says they would like to have 3 years of a foreign language for admissions into Madison. They don't say it's necessarily required, they say they like to see that. So one of the reasons they like to see years 3 and 4 of a foreign language is because years 3 and 4 of a foreign language are difficult. They have academic rigor. And so they're looking for courses like that. I would say 15 years ago, many colleges said we want to see 3 or 2 years for sure. With the advent of dual credit and more AP classes, they're backing away from that and saying, okay, there's other ways you can prove to us academic rigor. Student essays are becoming, are important. That's the fourth part of this. Those student essays are becoming more important as some kids are opting out of submitting their ACT scores and SAT scores. You can see that the other 3 are also important in the admissions process, but they probably are a second tier level. And I put them 5, 6, 7. ACT and SAT, I put this together so that if you go online and look up this presentation, you can come back to it if there's anything you want to see. The basic difference between ACT and SAT is common on the coasts of the United States, East and West Coast. ACT is more of a central test. They do the same thing. Again, they give a predictor score for how students are going to do in college. How well do they predict? Again, how well does any test predict anything? We at KML give the ACT because of that Midwest bias, obviously, but also the state of Wisconsin has us give the ACT to every junior. And since the state has decided that, obviously we give the ACT. The other thing, we do offer the ACT on national test days during April and June. I guess we look at it as a home court advantage for the students who are taking it. They're comfortable in their surroundings and they can take the ACT then. We do not offer the SAT. We've never been able to become a site for that. I'm still pursuing it. SAT gives you a little bit more time to fill out the test. It's a little more reliant on math and less on English. Anecdotally. Okay. On the right-hand side of this, I have freshman students applying for UW System schools will not be required to submit test scores through the summer of 2023. That's what they've announced so far. My hunch is it may be extended out further. It started out as, we feel bad for the seniors who didn't get a chance to retake SAT as much as they wanted, so we're making it optional. You don't have to submit it. What I'm finding is when the kids don't submit any scores, then the colleges are going to rely more on the other parts of the admission process, the academic rigor, the GPA in those classes, and then also, oftentimes they'll have to write an extra essay. I encourage students who get what I feel are good ACT scores, I encourage them to submit them to the schools that I think it will benefit them. If it's a borderline, I'll tell them it's borderline, and some will choose not to send ACT, SAT scores, and they'll do the essays instead. I put 2 links in there, and those 2 links are for the UW system schools that talk about the admission requirements, and then the second link is for the private schools, so Marquette, Wisconsin Lutheran College, Concordia. Those admission requirements would be in that spot, if you would like to look at that. AP classes, we talked a little bit about that, and the second point, 3, 4, or 5, if your students are planning on going to a UW school, the UW system schools have to accept and give credit for a 3. Some of the private schools in the state will not give academic credit for a 3. They'll say you have to get a 4 for us to accept that credit in. A 3, 4, or 5 in the UW system schools will ensure that you have college credit by passing that AP exam. AP exams can be taken without taking an AP class. AP exams can be taken by young students. This year, I believe the youngest group will have our sophomores taking AP exams. The cautionary tale of that is 16-year-olds are going to take a college level exam. I'll be interested to see how it goes. I did put some links on there to see what colleges do for AP credits, and you can look through those. This last point, AP is viewed as the gold standard by many schools, and I put with low acceptance rates. Some Ivy League schools have a 6% acceptance rate. That's very low. Schools like that will often say, we're not going to accept dual credit courses from the colleges you took them from. We will accept AP scores. And so that's why I call that the gold standard. In my time as guidance director, I have not had any students who have said to me, my dual credit courses did not transfer. Again, that may happen at some point. That's why I would encourage, when your students have an idea of where they want to go to school, check with that school. Admissions people are very willing to talk to you about your students' future education because it's worth a lot of money to them. And so if you ask them questions, they'll be very responsive and helpful in getting those answers. Dual credit classes, Mr. Shinny covered this very well. I guess I'd point to this last point up here. Credits will transfer to most colleges and universities. And the idea, I had a daughter who graduated a few years ago. She took a dual credit government class. The reason we had her take dual credit government is because I thought it was valuable for her, before she goes off into college, to experience what a virtual online class is. It's a different format, but it's becoming a more common format, especially in college education. She had to take government as a requirement for high school. We agreed that she would take it as a dual credit. She passed the class. The grade she got there would have transferred into a college, but not the one she chose. And so we didn't take it as the idea of transferring the credit, But that's my encouragement. If you have in mind dual credits that you want to take, check with the college to see what they will count it for and how many credits they'll count for. Now we transition into another option for your students. Not every student is going to go to college. This is an option for both college-bound students and non-college-bound students. It's the Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship Program. Students are going to be able to apply for that January 15th. What they do in that is if students have an interest in any of those bullet-pointed areas, the Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship Program will have them fill out applications and check mark interests in the areas that they want to explore through work and apprenticeship. It's open to this year's sophomores and juniors can apply, so it'll be next year's juniors and seniors. And they will apply and often interview for jobs. If they are chosen as being one of the best candidates and offered a job, we will work with them in their class schedule, and sometimes we will give them, for instance, 7th and 8th hour off to go work. So we'll schedule them so they have a study hall, 7th and 8th hour. They will leave earlier and go work. It's an apprenticeship where they have a mentor. They are taught the skills of the trade. In the past 2 years, we've had students do accounting apprenticeships. We've had students do welding apprenticeships. We have a plumbing apprenticeship this year. We also had a welding apprenticeship. And so I guess my point is, it's not just trades and technical work, kids who are going to work. Some of it is for kids who are going on to college. Last year we had a veterinary apprentice. And so there's lots of opportunities there. One of the things we do find is this apprenticeship works best with students who do not have a ton of after-school activities. Students who have a ton of activities after school and cannot work, that hinders them. But there's still opportunities. Part of this program is the students have to have 450 hours of work for the company in a calendar year. 200 of those hours can be accomplished during summer. So then during the school year, 250 hours of work. We've had students who have only worked during the weekend and summer to fulfill those hours. That's why if it's something that your child is interested in, I have some links up there, and there is a virtual meeting on December 8th. Work release is another aspect. Work release, I would say, is a simplified version of the Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship Program. Simplified in this, there's no application or interview process that we at KML are part of. Work release means your student has a job and you think that it's training them for a future. And so because it's helping them prepare for a future career, we can work their schedule to give them some time off and they'll go work at that place. You can see on the right-hand side there are some differences with the Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship applications, 450 hours of work. You will get high school credit for the Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship Program. Your job performance in the Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship Program is graded. We grade it on their transcripts as credit or no credit. We don't give a grade for that, but they are assigned a grade by their mentor. And then we do have some KML class requirements that go with it. They'll have to take some prescribed classes that Wisconsin Youth Apprenticeship feels bolsters their program in the classroom. Work release, you already have a job and you bring that in. No hours are required. You don't get high school credit. You're not graded. There's no class requirements. It's a little simpler. Any questions? Great question. The question was, apprenticeships, are they paid? Yes. Apprenticeships do get paid. For their 450 hours, they will get paid way more than I used to make when I was their age. Any other questions about anything that's been discussed tonight? Obviously, with such a small group, you're welcome to stay after and ask questions individually too. There's some info for our contacts. Mr. Shank, do you have anything else before we let these people go?
I would like to introduce Mr. Walter, if you'd like to do that.
Oh,
He's down in front there.
sure. Mr. Walter is our freshman computer teacher, and he's the one that's going to work with the freshmen in helping them walk through the steps of picking classes for the sophomore year. And so, thanks for being here.
Jason, how much should they be, obviously looking at everything now versus waiting for their meeting with,
And you're asking how much should your students be looking at the course selection before they go through the meetings? I would say that depends on your child. And I also think it depends on how much you want to be involved in it. As a parent, if you want them to explore on their own, Mr. Walter will help them through it. It's valuable to at least show them the emails that we got, because the suggested courses are laid out pretty well. One of the things you may want to explore with them is, okay, if you go off the beaten path of what's suggested, why and what are you headed to? And again, he'll be able to answer some of those questions, and Mr. Shank and I can help you with those too. All right. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being part of our big crowd. I'm assuming we have thousands online in the virtual world. So, all right. We'll be around. Feel free to stick around and ask questions. Otherwise, thanks for coming.